Good morning, everyone. This is Man Coverage. I am Knoxville Nate. That is James Bonneville. How are you doing today, James?
And it better be a crime.
I like to hear that. It is college football week 9. Things are starting to unfold. We are starting to get a clear picture. The college football playoff rankings come out, I believe, Tuesday. Correct me if I'm wrong, James.
You are right.
Tuesday. We're going to do our own college football playoff rankings today. I saw one of those teams live yesterday who is in the running. I think definitely in the running after watching Tennessee play yesterday. All my doubts have been removed. We'll get into that game here in just one moment, but pretty good day of college football all the way around. We're going to break down each game. We're going to give our picks, mine and James's, for the college football playoff teams 1 through 4. We're going to rank them. We're going to give our college football coach of the year award out for up to this point. And then we're also going to dive into the group of 5, which team we think is going to make it to the January 1st bowl game. But I think we got to start here in Knoxville. Both of us had questions about whether or not Kentucky should be ranked in the top 20. I didn't think they should. I thought that some of the losses were bad. I didn't think any of the wins were that great. But they were still ranked by some of the voters in the top 20. I believe they were ranked 19th. They showed up in Knoxville yesterday, and I got to be honest with you, they got hit hard. They got hit fast, and they wanted nothing to do with Tennessee after that first quarter. They went down, scored one drive, got the extra point blocked, and then disappeared into a shell, never coming back out. And I've been critical of the Will Levis hype since it began, and I think we can all agree now, after watching yesterday's game, that guy is not a first-round draft pick. Let me just run this down for you, James. 16 of 27 for 98 yards and 3 interceptions. What was your takeaway from Will Levis yesterday in Knoxville?
One, that he really misses Wan'Dale Robinson right about now. Honestly, I'm kind of tired. Like when I saw him, there's always, whenever they do projections for the next year on who's going to be a first round draft pick, there's always a quarterback that you're sitting there like, yeah, but no, he shouldn't be there. And Will Levis is this year's version. And I can't remember what interview I saw where he was talking about, his family was talking to reporters saying, not only is he going to be a first round draft choice, but he's going to be the first quarterback taken. And I'm like,
yeah, I heard that too.
What are they smoking? I mean, seriously, I mean, just because he has big and a big arm. And if I hear one more person compare him to Josh Allen, I mean, there's a better comparison to him and David Klingler than there is to him and Josh Allen. I mean, just because you have a big arm and you're tall doesn't mean crap. I mean, heck, if that was the case, Dan McGuire, Mark McGuire's brother, would have been a hell of a pro football player, but he wasn't. And I don't get it. I really don't get it. And yesterday showed it. I mean, the numbers you stated made it look better than what it actually was.
Lot of those, yeah, I agree with you. A lot of those yards were at the end.
Yeah, so. But you know, at one point in the second half, they had 5 yards total offense.
Yeah.
They ended the second half with 51. Just because of that big drive they had at the end. And you could tell Tennessee just put on the brakes. But I think the part that shocked me the most yesterday is Mark Stoops has been good at playing chess, where you do something and he reacts well to it.
Yeah.
His secondary didn't react. And Jalen Hyatt had literally ran the same damn routes he ran the Alabama game, and they kept playing for the slant rather than for the boundary. And don't kid yourself, Kirby Smart is a DB coach. They're going to look at that and they're going to defend Jalen Hyde a lot differently. And quite frankly, I think next week, if Tennessee pulls it off in Athens, you're going to see a Cedric Tillman or Brew McCoy. And I think more Brew McCoy being that X factor. And I've been a big fan of Brew McCoy ever since he came up out of high school. And it'll be interesting to see him take that next level because he's not getting the hype he deserves right now.
Oh, I agree. He was huge yesterday. He had 6 catches for 54 yards, 9 yards a catch, but they were all big catches. A lot of them were on third down. A lot of them were in the red zone. He made some big plays. And, you know, we were listening to Eric Ainge. Don't ask me why, on the way to the game. And he was talking about how, you know, let's be honest, Tennessee's running backs just are not that good. I couldn't disagree with him more.
Wow.
Jabari Small and Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright had 7 carries for 73 yards on Mark Stoops' defense. That's 10.4 per carry and a touchdown. Had a 35-yard touchdown. Jabari Small had 21 carries for 78 yards, all of them hard fought, and also caught a touchdown. So I think both those guys are huge. They've taken a lot of the load off of Hendon Hooker having to run the ball as much. And they were big. But my biggest takeaway yesterday was Tennessee's defense. I mean,
Agreed.
Yeah, Tennessee's offense is going to do what it does. This was the 11th game in a row where they've scored 30 or more points. That's a testament to Josh Heupel and what he's doing and his offensive coaching staff and the offensive players. But I knew they would score points. I did not think they would hold Kentucky to 6. Chris Rodriguez, 15 carries, 64 yards. Almost half of those yards were on that one drive where they went down and scored that touchdown. So the rest of the game, they pretty much held him in check. And I've got to be honest with you, they do miss Wan'Dale Robinson. And my biggest reasoning for that, saying that, is who else do they have? Their wide receiver core is just trash. Nobody was open. I mean, I'm criticizing Will Levis because he deserves it. But I'm going to also criticize the rest of their receivers because they weren't open. None of them were. They didn't get any separation. They didn't run good routes. They weren't, disguising their route. I mean, they were doing nothing to get open. So I got to give credit, 1, to Tennessee's defense, and 2, I've got to criticize Kentucky's offensive players and their scheme. What did you think about the Vols defense, and are they exceeding your expectations? Because they certainly are mine.
A lot. I mean, the part I think impresses me the most is they came out of the gate swinging. Like, you see some of these hits the DBs, the back 7 was putting on them, especially in the passing game. I mean, the one interception where I can't remember who got, was it Slaughter who got it? It was somebody hit the guy and the ball pops up in the air.
Mitchell. That was Mitchell, the one, Mitchell. Yeah. The running back, Jawan Mitchell. I
mean, he just got hammered, and you could tell he was not ready for it. And you could just see time after time, Tennessee was just playing attack. And this just looks like a team where the culture is they believe they can win. Where last year they were hoping they can win. And Heupel is really, he has been underestimated everywhere he has gone, and he is taking it to a whole new level this year in Knoxville. I mean, when's the last time you've seen this kind of excitement in back-to-back games in Knoxville? I mean, you got to go back to the early 2000s.
2001. Yeah. I mean, there hasn't been this kind of, aliveness, life in the program since 2001. Casey Clausen was the quarterback. He's been a high school coach for 20-something years. So that tells you something. But I'm reading, I read Kurt Herbstreit today where he said, cover the whole country. Neyland Stadium is as hyped as any stadium I've ever been in. This Vol football offense is terrifying, but do not sleep on their defense. They played their best game of the year. I 100% agree with him. In fact, that's what I just said. So you took the words right out of my mouth there, Kurt. That is what I just said. So yeah, their defense was legit. We're going to get into our college football playoff, but I've got to be honest, this game definitely is going to factor in to how I choose my top 4, because this looked like Kentucky didn't really think they could win coming in. And then after the game kicked off and the pads started popping, they believed it even less. And they gave up. I've never seen a Mark Stoops team give up like this, but they gave up. A lot of them looked like they didn't want to be here. That defense looked like Swiss cheese, and the offense looked like trash. And that's what I've got to say about that.
Honestly, there were a couple runs by Jalen Wright that you could just see. Like, there was that one where it looked like he was down and he kept himself up and he went for another 30 yards. And I was just like, he did that a couple times. And then you could just see that Kentucky was gone. Mentally, they were there physically, but mentally, they just wanted to get through the game and get back to Lexington as quickly as possible.
Yeah, they checked out, and I remember there was a couple of plays like that.
Yeah,
with the running backs, but that one in particular with Jalen Wright, I agree with you. And then you look at Jalen Hyatt, 5 catches, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, averaged 27.6, had a 55-yard touchdown. How could you watch the Alabama tape and see this guy get 5 touchdowns on the Bama secondary and let him behind you in this game?
Well, it's not like they did anything different. He ran the exact same routes.
I agree.
I'm blown away how Mark Stoops literally he looked unprepared. He looked like Jimbo Fisher. Honestly,
he did. He looked like he did nothing to help his team get ready for this game. And I've given him credit when I've been impressed with his coaching. And yesterday, I was disgusted, and I'm going to just provide that disgust to our listeners, because I tell it how it is. And when he does a good job, I'll give him credit and give him praise. And when he sucks and does nothing to help his squad get ready for a game, I'm going to say that also. One guy that I have to bring up who doesn't really fill the stat sheet, but really pops out to me when I go to these games in person, is number 88, Princeton Fant.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
He's Noah Fant's little brother.
Yep.
And this guy is a Swiss Army knife. Kind of reminds me of Taysom Hill without the arm.
Yeah.
He plays fullback. He plays running back. He plays tight end. He plays halfback. He plays on special teams. On one point, they were on like the 3-yard line, and they lined him up at tailback and just handed it to him. And he ran right in the end zone. Actually, they were on the 2-yard line. But it was just like a play where Kentucky thought he was going to be a blocker, didn't even look at him as possibly getting the ball. They handed it right to him, and he walked in the end zone. He's a difference maker and a guy that I could see playing on Sunday.
Well, I mean, you look at his brother Noah. I mean, they're both big in size. They're both athletic. Honestly, they remind me a lot of, and this is a bad comparison because I feel bad for Noah being up in Seattle now, but it's Shannon Sharp. You've got a bigger tight end who's really not the greatest of blockers. They're really more glorified slant, but then who do you cover on him? And honestly, if they didn't have the depth at receiver, I think Fant would have the ball more. I mean, he's a talent. He's an absolute talent.
No, I agree. And my last point on this game is I cannot recall the last time that I saw the Tennessee Volunteers finish a football game with 8 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. I mean, it was like they were in the backfield just as much as Chris Rodriguez was. I mean, they really, really were.
I felt bad for – I really, truly felt bad for Chris Rodriguez because every time he touched the ball, there were no holes. There was nothing. And he literally was getting set up to fail.
He was. But, I just – this was more a testament to, the Vols and their defense. They really, really came to play. They had the black uniforms on with the black helmets, and they looked like some badasses, and they played like badasses. This is the second week out of the last 3 weeks that I've watched them play against a top 20 team and just been blown away by how they perform. So can't say enough about the Vols and Coach Heupel and what he's doing and what these players are doing. I mean, the coaches can only do so much. They can prepare these guys as best they can. They can put a good scheme together, but the players have to go do it. And they did. And that's exactly what happened in the Kansas State game as well. Me and you both talked last week. We thought Kansas State might have a good chance to win. We were a little worried about them having to play their backup quarterback with Adrian Martinez injured and out for this game. And that was really the only reason that I thought, Kansas State might lose, may not win by as much as they want. They had to play Howard at quarterback. Did not miss a beat. I was astonished to go back when I watched this game and saw it top out at 48-0. James, what the hell happened in this game? I mean, Deuce Vaughn would still be running if the clock hadn't run out. 22 carries, 158 yards. Where did Oklahoma State go?
Spencer Sanders had a Spencer Sanders game.
Wow.
That's the hard part about with Spencer Sanders is when he's good, he's really good. But when he's bad, he's really bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, going into Manhattan is not an easy place to play. It's very isolating. The wind is always there. And the crowd is pretty raucous there. And you could tell they came out of the gates and just laid a freaking egg. I mean, it was not pretty. I mean, quite frankly, Will Howard had 4 touchdowns, but he was 21 of 37. I mean, that's not outstanding. And they dropped 48. I mean, the more important thing is they held Oklahoma State to no points.
0.
I mean, that is just remarkable. I mean, this is a team that has put up major league points on a lot of teams. I'm like going through the list here.
Yeah, 58 on Central Michigan, 34 on Arizona State, 63 on Pine Bluff, 36 on Baylor, 41 on Tech, 40 on TCU in a loss, and then they put 41 up on Texas last week.
Now, I will say that Oklahoma State has had a lot of injuries, and they need a freaking week off. The problem is they don't have one. And quite frankly, if they play like they did last week with their injury issues, I wouldn't be a bit surprised that Kansas gets bowl eligibility next week and knocks off Okie State at home. Because, this was just bad. I mean, this was really, really bad.
Yeah, I did not expect this at all. I got to be honest, I was a little bit blown away by it. And, Oklahoma State's been really good this year.
Yeah.
And they've played well all year long, even in the games that they have lost. The TCU game, 43-40. That's, the one game that they had lost all year. And that was a pretty damn close game. So I just didn't expect them to lay an egg like this. And that's exactly what they did. They laid an egg. And we've been giving old ex-Mullet Man a lot of credit. But we need to point out his coaching deficiencies today. And also Derek Mason, who's in charge of that defense. That guy should be publicly flogged today for his ability to give up 48 points to a backup quarterback and just inability to stop the run all day long.
Yeah. It was almost 200 yards rushing. 158 of that came from Deuce Vaughn, who, let's be honest, is legit.
Yes.
Let's put it this way. For anybody playing in NFL fantasy football next year, keep an eye on Deuce Vaughn because he is Darren Sproles. Wherever he lines up is going to be in that Darren Sproles type of role where he's going to be like fantasy gold, like kind of like Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
But holy crap. I just, when I saw that score come across, I was like, I had to flip over and find out what the hell was going on. And it was worse than it sounded. 48-0 is just an ass kicking, but it really was a lot worse than that.
It was, and I saw the score and I was just like, oh my gosh, that is atrocious. And then I watched it, and it was way worse.
Yeah.
In person, and I don't know. I don't even know what to say after that performance because it was god awful.
I mean, I will say the one thing that nobody talks about with K-State, and this is a Chris Kleiman special going back to his Nodak State days, is they really build that team on the line of scrimmage. This is a team, their line of scrimmage play is very good, that they don't get near the credit that they deserve. And they just absolutely kick the – I mean, 1.8 yards per rush for Oklahoma State yesterday.
Wow.
That is awful.
Yeah, you're not going to win many games doing that.
No.
Not many at all. So we'll see if Oklahoma State can bounce back, but I'm really doubting that after this performance. I think the kids, you could see at the end of the game, they were starting to doubt themselves.
Yeah.
And it just did not look good. We could talk about this game for a second, but really it wasn't much of a game. The Gators came to see the number one ranked Georgia Bulldogs down in Jacksonville. I don't even know why they call this the cocktail party. It's more like the ass kick party the last few years. But Florida, what the hell? They fired Dan Mullen because he's lost control of the team, and they're 1-4 in the SEC right now and look like they're getting worse each game. I don't know really what to say except for, Georgia's defense looked like Georgia's defense, and Stetson Bennett continues to get this offense rolling. I mean, 42 points on the Gators, that's pretty solid. What did you take away from this game?
Honestly, outside the third quarter, I thought Georgia was just playing with their meal. It just seems like they never felt like they granted Georgia really, besides the Oregon game where they came out smoking right off the bat, they never looked like they've been like firing on all cylinders. They're just kind of playing with their meal. And at some point they got to come out and just like put somebody to bed quick and just put your foot on their neck and just choke them out. And they just don't do that. I don't understand this team quite yet, but next week's going to be very telling for Georgia because they can't sit around and play goofy ball. I mean, Stetson Bennett was 19 of 38. Do you really want Stetson Bennett throwing the ball 38 times with that 50% completion percentage? I mean, you go up against a better offense. I mean, this could have been a lot different game. I mean, Florida's defense right now is just not good, but I'm interested in seeing what Florida does next week because the game that everybody's talking about, that's right, Florida versus Texas A&M. That someone may not be going to a bowl game. The loser of that game may be that person. So,
yeah, that's a game that many people had probably circled on their calendars to start the season, and now it's utterly meaningless.
It's embarrassing.
Jimbo loses again, by the way. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but that situation just keeps getting worse. And as we talked about before, we'll talk about it in a minute, but he's not going anywhere. So
no.
it could keep getting worse and worse. But let's go to Happy Valley. I got to be honest. I was a little nervous. The Nittany Lions came to play. You talk about some of these games like Mark Stoops and Derek Mason and Mr. Mullet not having their teams ready to play. Well, James Franklin had his team ready to play.
Yeah.
And they had a tremendous game plan, both offensively and defensively, this entire, first three quarters. They really believed they were going to win. And to be honest, they were the better team throughout the first three quarters. I mean, it was 14 to 13 halftime, and they were better. And the offense just couldn't get anything going. I got to be honest, the play calling was a little suspect. Sean Clifford, if you look at just the positive points, had a good day, 32 of 47, 371 yards and 3 touchdowns. The problem was he kept also throwing it to the other team. And this defense is unbelievable. Jim Knowles is the assistant coach of the year. The last 4 games for Ohio State, I saw this stat. The last 4 games for the Buckeyes, 13 takeaways. 4 games, 13 takeaways, 13 sacks, and 25 tackles for loss in the last 4 games. That is just unbelievable. The offense came to life in the fourth quarter, scoring 28 points. They scored 44 on the game. That is the most points that the Buckeyes have scored on the Penn State Nittany Lions since James Franklin took over in 2014. Some people are taking this game as a negative. I take it as a positive, to be honest with you, for the Buckeyes, because they never quit, even though things weren't going well. They leaned. They've been able to in the games that haven't gone good for their offense. They've leaned on the defense, and they've really supported them. And you go back and look at this game at the end. I mean, C.J. Stroud still threw for 354 yards, no turnovers, and Travion Henderson had a pretty good day too. What did you think about this game in its totality?
Well, I mean, because you look at Clifford did not start off well with those 2 interceptions, but we got to talk about that one defensive lineman for Ohio State. And I'll let you just start off with that and talk about him a little bit before I jump in and give my thoughts.
All right. Well, we're talking obviously about JT Talamula. He was the number 1 defensive player in the country when the Buckeyes signed him. He has played since he was a freshman and played well, to be honest, but he has gotten some criticism because he hasn't filled up the stat sheet. And some people are like, why this guy is a bust. It was first 3 games. He didn't have 1 sack, and just going on and on and on. Well, the coming out party was yesterday. 6 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, a pass defended, a fumble recovery, a strip sack, a interception return for a touchdown. The entire reason, I mean, Ohio State played a decent game all the way around, but the entire reason that they won this football game was because of JT Talamula, and
Absolutely.
That's just a fact.
I mean, honestly, what really impressed me about this kid was that first interception, where how often do you see a down lineman go back into pass protection, but more importantly, he jumped the route.
Yeah.
He jumped the route like a DB. And I've been doing a little more research on this guy, and it come to find out he was playing 7-on-7 and lining up as a receiver. And I mean, how many times do you see a 6'5", 280-pound down lineman play 7-on-7 and line up as a receiver and be good? I mean, you're looking at a guy that big. I mean, granted, he could position the guy out just on his body size, but his speed is something a lot of people don't talk about. And he's got tremendous speed and agility that that pick was amazing. That was just, there was a joke in the game at the end of the game that the best D-back on the team is a down lineman.
Yeah.
And the way he jumped the interception, without him, I don't know if Ohio State wins the game. I mean, offensive line was not providing holes for Williams and Henderson. They were Penn State was keeping the receivers in front of them as best they could. And that crowd in Happy Valley is raucous. It's a tough place to play, as you saw what happened to Minnesota last week, where they just completely imploded. Talamula is very good. I mean, I'm shocked that Ohio State got him. This is a kid that naturally would have went to a USC in Oregon 7 years ago, 5 years ago. Ohio State has done a great job expanding their recruiting base nationally and getting a kid like this.
Yeah, I mean, their quarterback's from California. This kid's from California. They don't really care where you're from. They just, if you can play ball, you can come to Columbus. But as I said, the reason they won the game was JT Talamula. His play completely turned this game around. His domination pushed everything in the Buckeyes' favor. But at the same time, Travion Henderson's 41-yard touchdown run was huge when it occurred. Penn State was right smack dab, still in the ball game, still threatening to win this game, and he just took off. And that's the difference between him and other running backs is he's got that second gear where he's just gone and there's nothing you can do. And if he gets that hole where no one touches him for the first 7 yards, it's over because he's going to outrun everybody. And then I've got to also point out Cade Stover. This is a guy who came in out of my uncle's high school, Lexington High School, up in near Mansfield, Ohio. Played defensive end, got moved to linebacker, played in the Rose Bowl at linebacker, and did a hell of a job against Utah. And then this year got moved to tight end. I have never seen anyone pick up a position change as fast as this guy. He was huge yesterday on third down, a couple of times on fourth down. He had 6 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. Was a good blocker as well. And then, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr., 10 catches, 185 yards, and he was double teamed for a lot of the day. That guy's absolutely unbelievable.
You know, the one thing I will say about Stover is I like him when he's closer to the tackle. When he lines up outside, when they go 3 wide and they put him in the slot, like when they're trying to run a bubble, he's had problems getting to the outside to block that DB because the DB has been beating him to the point. But I agree with you overall. Like if he's playing on the inside or closer to that tackle, he's very good. And people forget about him because they're so worried about all those other receivers who, I mean, it's pick your poison. And you look back at that Wisconsin game, I mean, he was wide open. Like they didn't even know he existed.
Yeah, he is just done. I mean, he's still got some ways to go. Like you said, there's some deficiencies on him, but he has really taken off this year and really stepped up. And I got to give him a lot of credit and provide him with some, just some talk because he was a big factor in this game. And also Tommy Eichenberg. I mean, holy crap. Dude has 15 tackles, 10 solo on a day where the defense was really leaned on. So a lot of credit to him. But like I said, Penn State came out and they were ready to play. This was their Super Bowl, their championship game right here. If they could win it, they still had a chance for their season to go well. Parker Washington had 11 catches for 179 yards. The one thing that concerns me about the Buckeyes is their secondary.
Yeah.
I'm still very concerned. Denzel Burke, who not only was possibly the best freshman of the year last year, he was one of the best cornerbacks overall. And this year he looks lost at best. And the other side isn't much better. It's been kind of a revolving door. Cam Brown has been out there some. There's been a whole slew of guys that have tried to man that other side. And I think Jordan Hancock is one of the other guys. But it just hasn't looked good on the outside at times. So that's one thing that I think they really need to shore up.
Well, I mean, it was very obvious. Franklin's whole game plan was to pepper the outside and try to beat them from the outside end. The one thing I will say, because Penn State's running game has been a question mark since Journey Brown left the program for health reasons. But Katron Allen, the freshman out of IMG, has really impressed me the last few weeks. He's starting to get more and more carries as a backup to Nick Singleton. And quite frankly, I think he should be the starter. He's got a lower center of gravity. He's harder to bring down. He's just a force. And he can go inside, outside. I mean, in many ways, he reminds me a lot of a smaller Curtis Enos. And just the way he carries himself. And it'd be interesting to see how he develops his time in Happy Valley.
Yeah, I agree. Penn State impressed me. I thought they were a little bit better than I anticipated. The game plan the scheme was pretty solid. And then they have more talent than I thought they did. So I'm going to give them a little bit of credit, but also, people that want to criticize the Buckeyes, they won 44-31. I don't give a damn, what the score is in the second quarter. I don't care what the score is in the first quarter. What matters is what the score is at the end. And at the end, it was 44-31, and the Penn State scored a touchdown late that didn't matter. So that made the score look a little bit closer than it was. they got going. And I think the Buckeyes on the road in Happy Valley did a pretty good job considering what they were getting thrown at them. But we'll see what happens. As we like to say, it ain't over till it's over. The Buckeyes are 8-0. They've got Northwestern next week, and then Indiana, Maryland. I think they should probably handle those three, and then obviously the November 26th is the game, and that's gonna tell a lot of things in that one, because yesterday Big Brother beat up on Little Brother pretty big.
On the field, little brother went after Big Brother in the hallway in the tunnel after the game. Yeah.
Yeah. We do need to talk about that. I mean, what the hell? You got one guy versus like 20 guys, and you're beating the shit out of them with your helmet. Yeah. That was absolutely ridiculous. And these guys are potentially facing criminal charges. As well they should, because that was ridiculous. And you've been handling Michigan pretty well the last couple of years, and things don't go your way yesterday, and so you beat the guy up with your helmet in the tunnel afterwards. That was ridiculous, and I hope those guys are held accountable, because somebody could have really gotten hurt bad, and I think somebody did get hurt, but could have been even worse. What did you think about this game in its totality? With Michigan State. I mean, that they were so good last year. Everybody was on the Mel Tucker bandwagon. I was not. I kind of thought that Michigan State kind of jumped the gun, giving him all that money after one season. And this year has not looked good. They are 3-5 now. Sparty is 1-4 in the conference, and scored one touchdown in the first quarter all day yesterday. What did you think about that performance?
Well, Michigan State has been lackadaisical all year. I mean, you live by the transfer portal, you die by the transfer portal, and people forget Kenneth Walker III was a pretty freaking good running back last year. And Jalen Berger and Zach Broussard are not Kenneth Walker III. The receiving core was much better last year. It's gone down since then. Not as much, but I mean, and their defense just seems to not stop a cold. Now, Michigan, sure, they're undefeated. I will not give them that, and they're a very solid team. But I'll be the first to say it. They're predictable. If you can stop the run, which, let's be honest, Blake Corum is putting up massive yards, and their defense is good is pretty solid. Problem is J.J. McCarthy is very predictable. He's going to keep everything underneath unless he's rolling to his right. That's when he's going to go up top. But he will not go up top if he's dropping back. And quite frankly, I could see Ohio State, if they jump out quick and get up on them, they could make it very tough on J.J. McCarthy and the Michigan Wolverines.
Well, what happens to the Michigan Wolverines if Blake Corum goes down? That's my question.
They're done.
What happens to him? I mean, he ran the ball yesterday 33 times.
Yeah.
33 carries for 177 yards. What happens if he goes down? I mean, you look at the Buckeyes yesterday. Mayan Williams has been the better running back for Ohio State over the last 5-6 weeks. He's been the better running back. But yesterday he got hurt and went down after, I think he had like 2 carries and was doing pretty well, including one of those carries was a touchdown. And he got tackled on the sideline and I think he got his ankle rolled up, and he left the game and never came back. Hell, they just gave the ball to TreVeyon Henderson and went on winning 44-31. What happens if Blake Corum goes down and gets injured? Because if you start giving this guy 30 plus carries a game, at some point something is going to happen. And this is where, I know Donovan Edwards is good, but he's nowhere near the player Blake Corum is.
Yeah, Blake Corum's on a different stratosphere. I mean, it's funny. You look at the 33 carries for $177. His long yesterday was 17 yards.
Yeah,
that means it was death by a million cuts yesterday for Sparty.
Yeah,
but I mean, you take Corum off the field, you're not stacking 8 in the box. You're putting 7. And now you're setting 3rd and long and forcing J.J. McCarthy to throw, where he becomes much more predictable. And you allow, if you've got good DBs or good DNs that can crash the quarterback, you're going to find openings for turnovers.
I agree. I mean, JJ McCarthy, all offseason and after the first couple of games, all we heard was, he is so much better than McNamara. They're going to roll with McCarthy so that they can get some production out of the quarterback position. Where is it? Because I haven't seen it. This looks like Cade McNamara 2.0 to me. What the hell's the difference between Cade McNamara and this kid?
Well, I keep going back to it. I think Michigan's problem on offense is the same problem Texas A&M has. You've got a very archaic offense, and losing Josh Gaddis, I think, is hurting them. But more importantly, I think Harbaugh's hurting them offensively because they're still trying to basically 3 yards in the cloud of dust, 3 yards in the cloud of dust. I'm sorry, Bo Schembechler is dead. We got to move on offensively and really open it up because I don't know who J.J. McCarthy truly is. I feel like he's been put into a box of hand the ball off and don't turn the ball over. Well, hell, he could play for Barry Alvarez then.
Yeah, no doubt. It looks kind of like a Wisconsin quarterback situation. Now, he is obviously more fleet of foot than Cade McNamara. He had 7 carries yesterday for 50 yards. But I'm just talking about in the passing game was kind of where my reference was coming to.
Absolutely.
He doesn't throw the ball any better than him.
No. So, he's predictable. He's so predictable. He's got a bigger arm, but he's very predictable.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm scratching my head right now, because I would have probably stuck with the guy that took you to the college football playoff, but whatever.
Yeah.
I don't really care. The next point is we need to discuss a little bit of Pac-12 action. Oregon. Okay, we saw week 1. Oregon got their fannies kicked by Georgia. And, losing to Georgia, no big deal. Georgia beats pretty much everyone. So I wasn't really, blown away by that. But just the way that game went and how Oregon didn't even show up to me concerned me. And then I've watched every other game. And Oregon has just looked like a different team since then. I mean, they beat Eastern Washington the next week, 70-14. They put 41 up on BYU. They put 44 up on Washington State. They put 45 up on Stanford. They put 49 up on Arizona. They put 45 up on UCLA. And yesterday, only 42 points. James, they have scored 41 points or more in every game this season except for Georgia. What has happened since that Georgia game, and how good is Oregon?
Bo Nix. I mean, honest to God, Bo Nix is finally becoming the quarterback that people expected him to be coming out of high school. And this is going to sound strange, but I don't think he ever should have gone to Auburn. And quite frankly, I don't think legacy kids should, because you are constantly going to be compared to your father. And if your father was really, really good, that weight becomes bigger and bigger. And Bo Nix, you're starting to see him like actually do progressions, where at Auburn, he didn't. It was like he was afraid to make a mistake, and he kept getting worse from his freshman year on. Him going to Oregon and playing with Dan Lanning has been a rebirth for him, and it's great to see this comeback. I mean, there's a realistic chance he could be sitting in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremonies.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree with you. Since that first game, he has been lights out. And yesterday, 27 of 35, 412 yards, 3 touchdowns from Bo Nix over Cal, who's, Cal's not a bad team.
Their defense is legit.
Their defense is good. And I've seen them play, several times this year. And, they've had some games where they've not looked great, but they're a decent football team. And to drop 42 points on their defense was respectable. No doubt. And I'm trying to figure out who's going to beat Oregon, because Colorado's not going to do it. Washington's probably not going to do it. I mean, Utah, Maybe.
But they got him at home in Eugene.
Yeah, I know. That's just what I'm saying. I mean, who else is going to beat them? I mean, I think Utah is the only team that even has a chance.
Yeah, I mean, now you look at then you got to look at Pac-12 championship, and honestly, right now, who would you say would go up against them? I mean, I think up to the moment, let me check it out here. It would probably be whoever wins that UCLA USC game.
Yeah, that's going to be a big game.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. UCLA, just before we move on here, UCLA looked pretty good again yesterday. I watched the entire game. I love DTR, man. I'm a huge Dorian Thompson-Robinson fan. He was banged up yesterday going into the game, and then he got hurt in the game, and yet he didn't come out. He's a warrior. He loves this football team. Obviously, he's been there for 9 years, so he obviously likes it in Los Angeles. But no, in all seriousness, he's a true warrior out there, and he didn't, even though they were ahead, he didn't want to come out. And you couple DTR with that running back. I got to be honest, Zach Charbonnet is the best running back in the country. 21 carries yesterday, 198, 3 touchdowns, and he led UCLA in receptions too. How good is this guy? And do you agree with me that he's the best running back in the country?
I don't know about that, but I'm like trying to figure out
who's better.
Who's better? That's the thing. I mean, I can't right now. Since I can't come back with anything. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I just keep coming back to time and time again with UCLA is how good that offensive line has been developed under Chip Kelly.
They're awesome.
I mean, we've talked about this constantly, but they don't get the credit they deserve. I mean, that LSU game last year.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody keeps going back to their running game and how they did it. Man, their offensive line was blowing LSU off the ball. I don't think anybody all year blew them off the ball like that. It was crazy. And I mean, it was like watching Alabama versus an FCS school. I mean, it was bad. And they don't get the credit because it's the Pac-12 and UCLA doesn't have that incredible offensive line. I mean, yeah, you could go back to Jonathan Ogden, and who was that other tackle they had? Was it Kyle Ferris? But I mean, usually UCLA is not known for their offensive line play. Man, they look like a Big Ten team. They just blowing people up left and right. They're what Stanford used to be before the downfall during David Shaw.
Yeah. No, it's true, man. And their offensive line has been playing like that ever since that LSU game. That was kind of their coming out party. I mean, you talked about it last year. It was just like watching old school UCLA football back in the day when they had Deshaun Foster. And no one's really run like Zach Charbonnet at UCLA since Deshaun Foster. And he's the running backs coach now. So that's funny that the two parallels have come together like that. But it was another impressive performance, and Chip Kelly really has UCLA going in the right direction. And I'm glad they stuck with him because that place was a mess when he got there. And I'm not just saying this to jack Chip Kelly up. I'm just being 100% honest. That place was a disaster when he got there, and it's taken him some time. But he's done a very good job of righting the ship, as they say. Let's do this. Let's get into our CFP here. College football playoff rankings. They come out Tuesday. Let's say the season ends today. It's done. It's over. James, who are your 4 teams going on?
I've got Ohio State playing TCU, and I got Georgia versus Tennessee.
Georgia versus Tennessee.
Georgia versus Tennessee in the Peach, and Ohio State TCU out in the Fiesta.
All right. Well, I've got, and this is going to probably shock you a little bit, but I've got Tennessee 1.
That doesn't surprise me. That really doesn't surprise me at all, honestly.
Hey, I was not a believer. I really wasn't. I was like, they got a high octane offense. Coach Heupel's doing a great job. Hendon Hooker's good. But I was concerned about the defense. I was concerned about the longevity, how long they could keep this up, the tempo, injuries, how deep they were. I'm not concerned about any of that anymore. I've seen them live, sitting right there in the stadium 2 out of the last 3 weeks. Once against Alabama, obviously they put up 52 points and won, tore down the goalpost, all that. I was like, oh, maybe there'll be a drop-off after that big victory. Not so fast, my friend, as Johnny Corso would say. They looked better yesterday against Kentucky and dropped 44 points on them and ended up winning that game 44-6 in a rivalry game that's gone back and forth the last few years. So I got Tennessee number 1. I've got Georgia number 2. This is a Buckeye fan here, by the way. And I've got Ohio State number 3. And number 4 is what I really struggled with. Do I put Clemson in there? Do I put TCU in there? Alabama in there. I don't know. I mean, as of right now, and we're doing this just as of today, I put Michigan in there. And so I've got Michigan at 4. I'm not that impressed with them, but defensively, they've looked similar to what they looked like last year. I mean, holding Michigan State to 7 points, I thought was impressive, no matter how much Michigan State struggled. They held Penn State to 17. There's just not. I'm just looking for their marquee win on the Michigan schedule, and I don't see it.
Yeah.
But if I was ranking them right now, I would have to go, as I said, Tennessee number 1, Georgia number 2, Buckeyes number 3, and I got Michigan number 4, just because I believe in them a tiny bit more than I believe in TCU. The good news is, James, a lot of these teams are going to play each other.
Yeah.
Tennessee plays Georgia next week. November 26th, the Buckeyes play the Wolverines, so we're going to get to see that. And these teams that don't play anybody, like TCU and Clemson, they may benefit from this because Clemson doesn't play anyone.
And that's why I put Clemson and TCU there. The only reason I was thinking about putting Tennessee at 1, but I kept sitting there thinking, like, Ohio State, the people are going to vote them 1 are going to stay at 1. Where Tennessee is going to get their votes is they got to pull them from Georgia. So and that's very possible that you could walk into this week. It'll be interesting to see what the rankings are today before we go into the playoff rankings on Tuesday. See if they're even out yet. Yeah,
no, it's going to be interesting. But I definitely think we can take Will Levis out of the Heisman race. And I think we can also probably
he was in it.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. But this guy was comparing himself to Josh Allen, so I think we can also remove that comparison here and move on from him, because that dude is no longer going to get drafted at all. I mean, I before the season, I was like, I don't know if he's getting drafted at all. And everyone was telling me that he was the first quarterback going to be taken. He was the first round draft pick, all this garbage. And man, I don't see it, and I never saw it. And I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe he'll get drafted. He does. I watched him warm up, man. The guy's big. He's a good athlete. He's got a good arm, but just in the game, which is what matters, or what I thought mattered, I don't like his decision making.
Yeah.
I don't like his progression. I don't like anything about his actual game. I mean, if he just was throwing footballs on the sideline, if that's what you want him for, he'd do you right there. But playing in the football game is kind of what I thought mattered here, and he sucks at that. So anyway, Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan's what I got. You got
Ohio State, then Tennessee, then Georgia, then TCU.
Got it. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the committee comes up with. And we got to talk about the group of 5, because one of those teams, right, is going to go to a January 1st bowl game, correct?
They gotta.
And which one's it going to be?
I mean, honestly, I keep coming back to 3 teams, potentially 4, but I would have to start off with Tulane, who has quietly had a very, very good year. I mean, the win at K-State is saying a lot right now. Now, that loss to Southern Miss at home was really bad because Southern Miss is just not a good football team. But Tulane is showing, and Willie Fritz, everywhere he's gone, has proven it, from Blinn to Sam Houston State to Pittsburgh State to Georgia Southern, now at Tulane. I wouldn't be a bit surprised that you see a team like a Colorado go after a Willie Fritz type of hire, because this guy knows how to win. Everywhere he's gone, he struck gold. Then after that, I cannot believe these words are coming out of my mouth. Liberty? Liberty may have a shot of playing in a January 1 bowl.
I like Liberty. I do. I couldn't agree with you more. I think Liberty is a really good football team, and I think they were very smart, honestly, to lock their coach up, Hugh Freeze, for the next 8 years. They just gave him an extension this week and locked him up. And I think that was a good move, because I could see some people coming after that guy now. You agree with me?
Oh, I quite frankly, I mean, how much would the buyout be if they did?
I don't know. I'd have to pull his contract up to see.
I'd have to imagine that somebody's still going to try to make a run at him. Now,
it's going to be harder now, though, with an 8-year contract. These guys, pretty much, almost a lot of them, their contracts are fully guaranteed. Now, I don't have his contract in front of me, so I'm not 100% sure if it is. But he's done a hell of a job there. And if I had to hire somebody right now, I'd definitely be talking to him. And I would also be talking to Jamie Chadwell at Coastal Carolina.
Agreed.
They're 7-1 again, and B-slapped Marshall yesterday, who beat Notre Dame. So they're 7-1 right now. They're rolling. As I mentioned, last year, I didn't even know Coastal Carolina had football until Jamie Chadwell got there. And I certainly know now. And I don't know if you noticed, but MTSU won again yesterday. Chase Cunningham, the pride of Knoxville Catholic High School, 21 and 27, 265, 3 touchdowns. I love that kid, and he continues to get it done. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think I just don't think both those guys are going to be at those schools next year. And I think that Hugh Freeze has a better chance of coming back to Liberty now that they've given him an 8-year contract. I have to look at what Jamie Chadwell's contract's like, but why would you not hire this guy if you were looking for a coach?
Agreed. I think the one name I think a lot of people at the Group of 5 level for a head coach or a Power 5 level as an OC that people should be looking at is Willie Korn, who's the OC at Coastal Carolina. People probably don't remember him, but he was a very highly touted quarterback, went to Clemson, and just couldn't crack the lineup due to injuries or whatever. He has done a phenomenal job with that offense at Coastal.
Yes, he has. And, he was at Clemson for a while and has bounced around and, really got his shot to be the OC there. And he's just taken that job and ran with it. And I think, he may get another OC job somewhere bigger. But I could see a head coaching job of him in here in the future for sure.
Absolutely.
So, anywho,
Coach of the year.
Yeah, coach of the year. Now that's the last thing that we need to put our predictions in today. Now, obviously, this might change, but as of today, the season ends right now on October 30th. Who you got? Who you giving the award to?
This is hard, but I got a top 5.
Okay.
Number 1, I think you're going to agree with me on this one. Josh Heupel.
That's my guy.
Number 2, Brett Bielema. What he has done at Illinois in 2 years has been remarkable. Yeah, he's an awful human being, but quite frankly, he knows how to win.
This isn't a popularity contest. This is a coach of the year contest.
He may look like Jabba the Hutt, but My God, he knows how to coach, and what he has done to Illinois in 2 years is remarkable. Number 3, I got to go Sonny Dykes. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew that offense was going to be legit this year. I knew they're going to be able to put up points because he knows how to do that. I didn't expect this. I really didn't. And it would be great to see them play in a New Year's Day bowl game after being really knocked out of a playoff back in 14,
Yeah.
doing what they had to do. And then I would go Chris Kleiman at K-State, who I could see him jumping to a bigger school. And then last but not least, a guy who's never gotten the title is Ryan Day. I'm surprised he hasn't been coach of the year.
I am too. I mean, people like to criticize Ryan Day more than they want to give him credit, and I don't get it. I don't know what else you want this guy to do. I mean, the other thing that people don't understand is, and I guess unless you're a Buckeye fan or unless you are around the program on a day in, day out basis, you don't get it. There is extreme pressure every single game to win. You are expected to win every single game, whether you're on the road, whether you're at home. I don't give a crap who you're playing. There's this 450 million pound gorilla sitting on your back each game to win. And what has he done with that pressure? He's gone 42-4, James. I look at the games against ranked teams. I look at the games against unranked teams. I look at the games on the road. I look at the games at home. And obviously, I'm a homer, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I'm not going to lie about it. But when you have over a 90% win percentage, and you are every other team's, Super Bowl every week, it's like Duke basketball, Notre Dame football. If you beat this team, it can be a victory that kind of solidifies your whole season. And for him to continually do this over and over again, I think is unbelievable. And to not consider him for the coach of the year, I think is ridiculous.
His recruiting is amazing, honestly. I mean, you go back and everybody talks about Urban Meyer. Well, Urban Meyer, he has his places where he recruits. He's going to recruit to Florida, especially South Florida. That's how we got the Bosa boys. I mean, there's certain places where he just comes back to time and time again. Ryan Day looks at the map, and it's wide open. He's going to go anywhere, anytime. It's like Bobby Bowden when he first started coaching at Florida State. I'll play anywhere, anytime, anyhow. Ohio State's going into areas that they've never gone into before and winning recruiting battles. I mean, Washington, the state of Washington, they're going into.
Yeah.
Prior to Ryan Day, when's the last time they got somebody from Washington?
He doesn't care where you are. If you can help him win, he will go and get you. I don't know if you saw the story that came out last week, but he got fined in 2019 because he skipped the college football award show, which he was supposed to go to the show and be there. They were doing this segment where all 4 coaches, Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, all the guys that Kirby Smart, I think was the other one, who were there for the college football playoff, were all going to sit down and be interviewed. I don't know if you watched that interview, but there was only 3 coaches up there. And the reason was Ryan Day was on the road at CJ Stroud's house. And the program got fined. Ryan Day personally got fined, and they interviewed him about that because the story came out, and he's like, I would pay that fine 10 times over if it meant that I could be guaranteed to get CJ Stroud on my football team. So this guy cares a lot more about bringing these kids in than he does getting credit for it. And look what he did yesterday in that game. Things were not going great. The offense was struggling. His play calling was being questioned. But he never, wavered, and he made the adjustments that he needs to. That's how I see who a good coach is. Maybe the first half doesn't go as planned. Maybe the first half doesn't look good. But what happens in the second half when you go in and you make adjustments, that I think tells you a lot about how good a coach is, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the difference between coaches in college versus coaches in the NFL. Honestly, I think he's one of the few that can make the transition and make it work, because he is an X's and O's guy, where Guys like Urban, they're not. They're CEOs. Dabo, CEO. I think Nick Saban did not have Bill Parcells sitting on his shoulder trying to pair it to him. I think Nick Saban could have done very well at the NFL level. But a majority of the coaches now in college are not X's and O's guys. They're CEO types, and they leave the X's and O's to their coordinators.
Yeah, I'm with you, buddy. But let's keep that quiet because I don't want him going anywhere. I want him to stay in Columbus forever. And last I heard, they just locked him up, gave him an extension. Him and his wife both love it in Columbus. They love the Ohio State program and they love Ohio State football. And I think he's going to stick around for a long time, and I surely hope so. Because as I said, I don't know if you caught all that. If everyone caught all that, 42-4 is the man's record. In case you guys missed that part, 42-4. I don't think you really have to say anything else other than that, do you, James?
Not really.
42-4. I think that's good, right?
By the way, did Sam Hartman just get picked off again?
Yeah. What has happened to Wake Forest? They got truckled by Louisville yesterday, 48-21. Wake Forest was up at number 10 on the rankings, which I didn't agree with, but they were there. And Sam Hartman fell apart yesterday. That 3 interception performance, I believe he fumbled it 3 times also and lost all 3. So that's 6 turnovers from one dude. No way you can win a game when one player turns it over 6 times, right?
I would be shocked if they did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. I'm looking at next week's games. There's 2. That will Wake Forest still be ranked will be the key. There's only 2 games there are 3 games that are teams that are both ranked. The other game, which nobody's even talking about one iota because everybody's talking about Tennessee, Georgia at 2:30 on CBS, if you didn't know that as of yet, is Alabama at LSU.
Yeah.
Did you even know that game was going on next week? Because honest to God, I've heard nothing.
No, I didn't. I mean, I knew it was going on because I looked it up, but I haven't heard anyone speak about it. And that's going to be a good football game, in my opinion. LSU has improved this year and has gotten much, much better as the season has rolled on. And they still have a quarterback that can't throw it outside the numbers or 20 yards down the field, but he can sure run. And I'm picking Bama to win that one, but they're favored by 12, and that might be some bulletin board material for the Tigers, don't you think?
I would think so. Here's one that I heard after the Tennessee-Kentucky game last night. I know we got to roll here quick. Do you know the opening line out of Vegas was Georgia by 12?
What? No, I did not know that. The one I'm looking at right here on ESPN has Georgia by 9.
Yeah, it's already dropped to 9, but it started off at 12.
I would have been on that 12 all day. I wish I would have known that. I would have spent $1,000 on that. But yeah, I can't recall the last time that LSU was a 12-point dog at home in a night game. When's the last time that happened? I don't know. The other game that intrigues me before we get out of here for next week, the other game that really does intrigue me is Texas at Kansas State. Do you give Texas any chance to win that game? There's no line on it that I've seen.
No
chance.
I wouldn't say no chance.
You watch, buddy. I'm picking Texas to win that one.
I'm picking K-State because if that wind's blowing, I mean, you look back at that Oklahoma State game, yours was not good when it was windy. And it's rarely not windy at Manhattan, Kansas in the fall. So
I'm just saying, I'm putting K-State on upset alert at Texas. I'm not saying they're definitely going to win, but I'm saying Texas has got a fighter's chance. And then Clemson is traveling to the Golden Domers and playing Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's gotten better. Can they beat Clemson? I don't think so. But with the quarterback issue going on and all of that, Clemson, Notre Dame, I'm putting Clemson on upset alert too. They're going to have to play a good game in order to beat the Irish. I'm hoping Marcus Freeman's got something up his sleeve to pull that one out because I would love to see Clemson go down.
I'm shocked that you didn't pick that if you're going to go upset alert on something, that you wouldn't go a little more aggressive and take Vanderbilt to beat South Carolina, not just to cover, but to beat South Carolina next week at First Bank Stadium in Nashville, since South Carolina showed up so well against the Missouri Tigers at home.
Yeah, they did. They did kind of crap their pants yesterday against Mizzou, but the Vanderbilt Commodores are 0-4 in SEC play. They did not win an SEC game last year, so it's been over 3 years since they won an SEC game. I'm not going to start picking them to win one now.
Hey, they almost beat Mizzou.
They did, but they didn't.
They did better than South Carolina did against them.
They did, but they didn't. Hey, as they say, close is only good in darts and hand grenades. So yeah, but we'll see what happens. We definitely have some good games, though. Obviously, the Tennessee-Georgia game is the headliner. That's going to be the biggest game in quite some time. We'll see if the Vols are ready for it. I think they are. I think they're going to win. This offense travels, buddy. I don't care where you are. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care what the field is. I don't care who's playing defense. This offense, 30 points, 11 games in a row. I think I said that right. I think I mentioned that.
The one thing that really impresses me is because Tennessee and Arkansas run the exact same offense. What's the big X factor? I think Hendon Hooker and the receiving corps are just that much better. I mean, who is the best receiver on Arkansas that would even crack the top 4 at Tennessee?
There isn't one.
There isn't one.
I think the play caller has something to do with it too. I mean, Josh Heupel knows what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Calling plays, and it shows up on Saturday because I was sitting there yesterday, 13 rows off the field, and I was just blown away by the way that he calls plays. As I said, I mean, that's why he's my coach of the year so far, because not only has he got this entire culture turned around, not only does he have this entire team believing that not only that they can win each game, but win the national championship, but he also is calling the plays for this offense that's rolling people and trucking opponents. I got to give him a lot of credit for what he's doing out there.
You bet.
All right. Well, I appreciate you. One thing that I also wanted to note was got to meet Chad Ochocinco yesterday. He was in Knoxville at the ball game, cheering on the Vols with a Hendon Hooker jersey on. And I'll send you some pictures. But I was sitting there, and everybody was coming up and talking to this guy standing right next to me, and I was like, "Who is that?" And then he turned towards me, and I'm like, "That's Ochocinco," and he's wearing a Cinco jersey with a hooker on the back. So it was pretty cool. But Ochocinco is not a Vol fan, I didn't think, but apparently a Hendon Hooker fan because he was in the house yesterday, and we got to meet him. So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
All right, boss. I appreciate you. Same bat time, same bat channel next week. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And, wow, go Vols.
Go Vols.
Go Bucks. Peace out.
Later.